Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Emily Todd, and I'm really excited to share with you today how you can accelerate your application development with Heroku and one of our incredible partners, LaunchPad Lab. Heroku and LaunchPad have a really powerful partnership that really helps our businesses of all kinds to create digital experiences across the globe. If you're looking to build or scale an application quickly, you are in the right place today. A couple of forward-looking statements before we kick things off. So, as a reminder, Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Heroku is a part of Salesforce, and customers should base their purchasing decisions on products and the services that are currently available to them. And then let's dive into what our agenda is for today. We're going to do a brief round of introductions of our speakers today, and then we will talk about what applications or what tools are available to build applications within the Salesforce ecosystem. And then we'll talk about building applications and tools specifically on Heroku. And then we'll talk about when Heroku is the right fit for your particular solution and how Launchpad Lab can help you build that solution. And then at the end, we're going to leave plenty of time for questions. If you do have questions throughout the webinar and you don't want to lose them, feel free to pop them in that Q&A section at the bottom. Again, we will get to them at the end of the call. All right, let's do a brief round of intros. So again, I am Emily and I'm on the Heroku marketing team. I have been with Heroku and Salesforce for a little over 9 months now, and I am based in Santa Cruz, California. And I'm really excited to pass it over to Ryan to introduce himself.
Sounds good. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Francis. I'm the president at LaunchPad Lab. We are a partner of Heroku's. We've been around since 2012, building digital products for a whole host of different organizations and different industries. Personally, I got into this field in part because of Heroku. It made it so easy for me as an early developer in my career to build and deploy apps that I was really able to find a passion in it and go deep into the field. And so I do owe some credit to Heroku on that. It just made it so easy. And what's been really great for us at Launchpad is, over the years, we've been able to build some very high scale applications for large companies on Heroku with still that very easy developer experience that got us enjoying and loving software development over 10 years ago. So very excited to be here today. Hopefully we'll be able to share some good wisdom and lessons that we've learned along the way to folks listening in today. So
Awesome. Thanks for that intro, Ryan. And then Ben, turning it over to you.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everybody. Ben Rust. I'm a technical architect here at Heroku. We've been here for, 8.5 years now. So I am really excited to talk to everybody here about Heroku. Let's get going.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. All right, so I'm actually going to turn it over back to Ben now to talk a little bit about what the tools are that are available to you within the Salesforce ecosystem to build applications and portals. Ben, back to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Emily. So if you want to build an application or portal at Salesforce, there are a couple of different ways that you could go, and let's jump in and talk about those now. So why do businesses need apps and portals? Well, simply because customers expect it, right? So large percentage of customers expect a seamless experience with their interactions with businesses. They expect to be able to talk to somebody nearly immediately. And most said that if they're shopping with a business or they're interacting with a business, an app makes things that much easier to do. So let's talk about what some of those options are on Salesforce. So Salesforce has a continuum of solutions for you to build different types of applications. We start on the right side. We have our business users, right? Where we're doing no code declarative tools. We're dragging and dropping, building applications that way. Then there's also the sort of low code way to produce an application where you're sort of building with HTML and CSS, and that's still sort of in the confines of our Experience Cloud framework. And then let's say you want to do something that's a little more bespoke or a little more pixel perfect or more on brand, you probably are going to need to do something that's utilizing a more pro code way forward. And that could be you're using JavaScript or Java or Go or Python or Ruby, and that's going to live on the Heroku platform. So if we want to put the two of them sort of side by side, because a lot of folks will say, well, what's the difference or how do they compare? So if we think about things on the Experience Cloud side, the Salesforce side, like we just talked about the no code or low code, right? It's easy to scale. It's a very easy configurable UI. It's built on Salesforce, right? So the tooling is native. It's people who are used to dealing with the declarative or low code solutions are fine. But then if we move to the Heroku side, it's more flexible. We have truly global scale, right? If you need to deploy something around the world, you can do it pretty easily. Again, if you need to build something that is pixel perfect, is branded exactly like your website, you can get that bespoke UI, UX. It's built on open source tools, right? So on the Salesforce side, we're looking at something that's using Salesforce's native language. On the Heroku side, you can kind of build in whatever language is useful, right? So maybe you have a developer on your staff that's really proficient in Rails, right? That person could jump in and start to build something. If you have a need to extend that offering, right? So extend that application further out, we have easy scaling, right? So it makes it easy to go from 10 users to 10 million users. We have an ecosystem of open source software where if you need to add functionality to that application, you can do it very easily without having to build it yourself. So they're very similar in how they align, but really Heroku is where you want to build that sort of specific application for your business. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how we might build these apps and portals on Heroku. So if you're getting ready to deploy an app or you're thinking about deploying an app, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made, right? It's not just, I'm going to write this thing and it's going to be on the web and we're up and happy, right? In sort of the traditional world of deploying an application, you have to think about who is going to be the provider, right? Who's going to provide the infrastructure? There's at least 3 decisions to be made there. Then you have to decide on an OS. You have to decide on how we're going to containerize it. What kind of storage are we going to use? If we're going to use any orchestration, you have to make a decision there. Networking, monitoring, logging, right? And that could be that you have to talk to one person for all of that. But at many organizations, it could be you have to talk to one person for each one of those items. So it can be a lot of time wasted sort of getting from just, I have this idea and I want to test this app live. But there's a better solution. So we've had the saying for a very long time at Heroku that we are the quickest path from idea to URL, right? So I have this idea, I've built this cool Rails app, it works, it runs on my computer, it does exactly what we need to do, but we want to test it, we want to get in the hands of our customers. Here's Heroku, right? And we can take that idea, get pushed to Heroku, and now it's living on the web. So here's kind of how you can look at that, right? So from a traditional perspective, if we go back a couple slides and think about those different components that you have to consider, just make a decision on, talk to somebody about, commit to, right? That's almost all that time is spent in the DevOps and infrastructure parts of this triangle, which means that there's almost either not enough time for that person who's actually developing the application to spend time developing it, or it just means that those resources are highly constrained because so much else has been spent on other times or on other aspects of this app. Heroku turns that on its head. So if you go back to the last slide, we think about, okay, well, idea, URL. The reason for that is because Heroku handles everything from the app down, right? So we're handling the DevOps side, we're handling infrastructure, which means that your developers can spend that much more time developing the app, right? That's the cool thing. That's the thing that provides value. Heroku makes it easier to go from, we have this idea, to it's now in the hands of our customers. So what makes Heroku unique? Well, if you've spent any time at all on Heroku, you know it has a look, a feel. The whole idea is developer first, right? We want to make sure that developers feel comfortable, that they feel productive, right? So a developer comes in, they're on the console, they see, okay, this is a project I'm working on, this is the stage I'm on, here's its status, here's some metrics. It gives you everything you need in one place. We make it really easy to scale, right? With that, if you think back 3 slides, right? All of those little boxes you have to think about. Well, you also have to think about how are we going to scale all of those things? Well, Heroku makes it really easy, right? If you go into the console, you move the slider to where you need it, you hit save, all of a sudden you're ready for enormous amounts of traffic. We also make it easy to use modern languages, right? So there's 8 supported languages. We talked about a few of them: Java, JavaScript, Go, Clojure, Python, Rails, right? There's a lot of them. That makes it flexible for your teams to jump in and build. And one thing that we talk about quite a lot that a lot of folks don't know is we have a very specific and unique Salesforce integration called Heroku Connect, right? It's a super easy to use tool. You can sync your org to your application database really easily. And the result is you have a pixel perfect application running on a platform that allows you to scale globally. Now, what does this mean, right? So I've talked a lot about the value here, but really there's some hard numbers for this, right? So 40% increase in developer productivity. If you think back to that slide with all the little boxes, coordination of the different types of components that go into building an app, well, if your developer isn't spending time on those things and is really writing code, pushing code, having that app live where it needs to, they're completely more productive than they were. The reduction in DevOps is sort of obvious in that there's not somebody having to maintain all those little boxes and the costs associated with them. And the ultimate goal here is that we're giving the customer a better return on investment, right? If your developers aren't spending a ton of time managing infrastructure, scaling infrastructure, patching infrastructure, securing infrastructure, they can spend time building the thing that drives revenue. So a little bit about sort of the scale of Heroku. There's 13 million apps that have been created. I'm sure that Ryan and I are, a fairly large portion of that 13 million. We've got, at any one time, we've got 2 million data stores running. And then we talked a bit about this, of the add-on services, but we do have an Elements Marketplace, which is an easy way for developers to add functionality to their applications so you don't have to code it yourself. And some customers that we can talk about, right? So Health Sherpa, they're helping hundreds of thousands of customers easily sign up for healthcare. So they're able to scale in a cyclic sort of way up to hundreds of thousands of users and sort of scale back down. Salesforce, we use Heroku. We are an enormous user of Heroku, where we have many apps running on the platform that are doing customer-facing things, that are maybe just doing internal applications. And then University of California, San Francisco, they actually have an app that helps sort of coordinate the patient experience, right? So the scheduling, the information sharing, any kind of synchronization of information that has to happen between caregiver and patient and their org. A lot of the internal components of that are Heroku. All right, so I would like to hand this over now to my good friend Ryan and take it from here.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, when Heroku is the right solution and share some stories here, just to help guide you in that. If you're debating on kind of what technology would make the most sense for the application that you're trying to build, hopefully this section can sort of be valuable for you. So let's go ahead and jump in. So, when you're debating on which technology to pick, I know Ben earlier mentioned that you have a range of options, really ranging from no code and low code tools like Salesforce and Experience Cloud, to more pro code tools like Heroku, and all the way to having even more control in actually managing your own DevOps in something like an AWS or an Azure. There's quite a few things you need to consider, when you're debating on which of those technologies is going to be the right fit for your project. These 6 factors are really the big 6 that I typically see when we're advising clients at LaunchPad and being really kind of influential in deciding which technology is the right fit. And it really goes kind of, I think the far left to here, economics and control tend to be the most critical, and they sort of kind of go together a little bit. So when you're debating on, the economics of, and you're thinking about the budget for your application, a lot of times the control and the economics kind of interplay. So if you're wanting to have total control over the app, the UI, UX, and really have it be a bespoke experience that's a differentiator for your business and maybe even in your industry, that's probably going to come at a bit more cost in terms of upfront implementation. You're going to probably want to be in a pro code environment where you can code that bespoke application and spend time really making that experience great. The flip side is if you have a situation where you need something out the door right away that's just kind of bare bones functional and allows someone to submit data, and it's much more quick you might be more inclined to lean into a no code or a low code tool that allows you to get it out the door quickly, even if it's not, as performant or as brand perfect as some other applications might be. So these two kind of play together, economics and control. I find that Heroku is a really great middle ground where you, from an economics perspective, since it takes away all the need to do DevOps, it really brings down the implementation costs when you're building some type of an application. You don't have to deal with DevOps, and it really shrinks down that energy up front, as well as the energy over time to maintain those that application. You don't have to do things like server upgrades or database upgrades. It's all taken care of for you by Heroku, allowing the team to be laser focused on the actual app. So from an economic standpoint, it provides a cheaper path to value when you are looking to create something that is more unique or bespoke or high quality. And then as you think about control, it gives you total control over the actual application itself, which is frankly the control you want to have when you're building something that's customer facing or something that's mission critical. You want to have that level of control to be able to make that app exactly how you want it. But you don't necessarily need to go into the such control of actually having control over the actual infrastructure and sort of DevOps underneath it. There are very few situations where that level of control is really justified, and the kind of corresponding economics costs of adding that level of control is justified. So I think as you compare no code, low code, pro code, and then all the way to DevOps and managing your own infrastructure, Heroku provides a really great middle ground option where it's economical, but it also gives you the right level of control where you can really build a UI UX that matches your customers' needs and expectations. I'll just comment quickly before we move on a couple of these others, in particular scalability. I think Heroku is very unique in that it's both the best tool for speed to market. Like when you use Heroku, it's really as simple as, Heroku create and git push Heroku main, and your app is running and add a URL, just like Ben mentioned earlier. So from a speed to market standpoint, that is huge. You can write your code and get it to market extremely fast. But what's also really valuable with Roku is you don't have to end up, lifting and shifting it over to a different platform to meet scalability. You can scale on Heroku to insane levels. And I know there are businesses that have, billions of transactions a day on Heroku. So the scalability is there with Heroku. They have features like auto scaling, where if you have traffic spikes, the app can automatically scale to accommodate those traffic spikes, allowing really your product or business to scale right alongside your app without needing to do a big project to lift and shift it over to a different infrastructure. So I wanted to share a few reasons why at LaunchPad we find Heroku to be valuable for our clients. There's 4 kind of big principles that we follow in our product development. We call them philosophies. We have like 8, but I wanted to share the top 4 here that I think are most relevant. Get real fast, own the outcome, jump into the rock tumbler, and stand on the shoulders of giants. These are 4 principles we follow and kind of guiding philosophies that we follow to help deliver great products for our clients. Get real fast is really about getting right into the actual real work, which is actually building the product, and less about the things that kind of seem like they're real, but aren't necessarily real, like designs or wireframes or PRDs and things like that. A lot of times we see clients spend way too much time in the planning side of things and way too little time getting right into actually getting something functional and made that they can start to get some feedback and be able to iterate on. Heroku makes this way more doable. You can, if you have an idea for an app, you can very quickly prototype it and actually get it into a deployed URL state where you can start to share it and get some feedback. So this idea of get real fast is really made possible by Heroku because you take away the need for all of that upfront DevOps planning work that can really slow ideas and projects down. The second one here, this own the outcome, is really about having the people involved in building the product have this mentality of actually owning the outcomes of what they're building. A lot of times you see in the development community, developers sort of get roped into this role of like a ticket taker. They're just taking tickets out of, in Jira and coding them. And that's not the way to build great products. The way to build great products is to have developers who are bought into and understand the why behind what they're doing and are motivated to help make decisions as far as how the product should really work. And a great way to do that is by having smaller teams. The smaller the team size involved in building a product, the greater level of ownership each of those team members will have, and the better the work is that you're going to see from those people. Heroku allows you to have much smaller teams. Since you don't have to deal with DevOps and all that comes around that, you can have your development team be, front end and back end and really full stack developers who are focused in on the application itself and the UI UX of that application. So we found at Launchpad, we're able to have much smaller teams on these projects that where we use Heroku, and it results in our team members being happier, being more productive, and ultimately delivering better outcomes for our clients. The third one here, jump into the rock tumbler. This is kind of a saying that we stole from Steve Jobs. He gave this. Steve Jobs has a great interview where he gave this analogy of building a great product is a lot like putting a rock into a rock tumbler. And as you spin that rock tumbler, the rock is slowly getting polished. Every minute or hour that's spinning. And similarly to building great digital products, a team is the rock tumbler for that product. And so we're big believers at Launchpad in our developers, our designers, our product managers are a single cohesive unit, a single cohesive team that need to be actively involved in shaping the products that we're building. And one of the things that Heroku does is it makes the product development lifecycle more accessible to non-developers like product managers. An example of this would be like review apps. So review apps is a feature that Heroku provides where when a developer submits a pull request for a new feature in GitHub, it can automatically spin up a app just specifically for that pull request so that a product manager can come in and test that feature before it's even pushed up into like a staging environment or something like that. So it allows that product manager to be way more involved in the process and allows for much more cross-functional collaboration. The last piece here, stand on the shoulders of giants, is about understanding that in this world of software development, there are some amazing people who have come before you in this field, who have built some amazing technologies, whether that be open source technologies or products like Heroku. And any great product development team should be looking to stand on the shoulders of these giants. One of those giants is Heroku. It was really the first to come up with this idea of platform as a service and really to say, hey, maybe we don't need to all recreate the wheel on DevOps. Heroku has some of the best DevOps engineers in the world who have solved the problem of DevOps very well. And so at Launchpad, we're very big in leaning into experts who have already done something so well to where there's no need for us to recreate that wheel. We can add more value to our clients, focusing on the things that are more unique to their business problem than the things that have kind of already been solved. So I want to share a couple stories. This first one, ATBS, is a really cool story. So ATBS is a financial services organization that their customers are truck drivers who need help managing their book of business. So a truck driver is really like their own business owner, and they have to manage their P&L. They have to manage their taxes, and ATBS helps them with that. Really, they lean into ATBS to take care of that for them. ATBS is very big in this space and has thousands of customers, have been very successful in this industry, but they were facing a pretty big problem when they came to us a little, I think it was about 2 years ago. The problem that they were having is that they had a very antiquated portal where these truck drivers could go to access things like profit and loss statements. And they wanted to have something much more modern and much more accessible to their customers. Ultimately, truck drivers are on the road. And so having to log into kind of an antiquated portal that was really only accessible on a desktop computer was not ideal. And they really wanted to be able to offer a mobile app that would allow truck drivers to have visibility into their financials, to be able to conduct their, do things like uploading, receipts for gas or receipts for tire or any type of maintenance. So uploading receipts, be able to do something called per diem tracking. That's really important to the tax side of things for truck drivers. And so they ultimately, ATBS was using Salesforce internally. That's what their team internally uses to help manage their customer relationships. And so ultimately, they were looking to build an experience for their truck drivers that was tightly integrated with both Salesforce as well as their data systems that handle all of their actual transactions for those P&L statements. We felt like Heroku was the perfect fit for this project because of the fact that there is a tight integration with Salesforce known as Heroku Connect to streamline that connectivity to Salesforce piece, but it would also give them the flexibility to deploy out to both iOS, Android, as well as the web using a technology called Ionic. Ionic's a really great front-end framework for building cross-platform experiences. And so ultimately it runs React. So ultimately we wrote that with React in Ionic, deployed it out to iOS, Android, and web. And ATBS has seen a lot of great outcomes from this project, better intuitive experience for their truck drivers, reduced operational costs. And this application has proven its kind of scalability and reliability since we've launched this product. So here's kind of a quick demo of the ATBS app. So you can see here this is actually the mobile app running on a phone. Here you're landing in, you're able to see quick glance of your profit and loss, your per diem, any documents. This is the per diem tracking where truck drivers are reporting on their driving time, which is very important for their tax deductions. But you can see a bunch of different features that are really important for managing your financials as a truck driver. I mean, in this case, viewing charts and graphs around profit and loss. And in many ways, it's kind of like a QuickBooks product that has been created specifically for truck drivers that ATBS is able to offer them. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit out of trucks and into financial and into the world of lending. So this client, this is an AI story, and I thought this is very relevant for folks nowadays because there are so many awesome use cases for Heroku around AI. And I wanted to share one use case that we recently deployed for this client, Rock Solid Funding. So Rock Solid is a lender for recreational vehicles. So if you're interested in getting a motorcycle or an RV or a recreational vehicle and you'd like some financing help on that, definitely reach out to Rock Solid Funding. It's a great organization and they can help with funding around those recreational vehicles. And the challenge that Rock Solid was facing was that they had a very manual process around dealing with something called loan callbacks, where anytime they reached out to a lending partner to see if the customer was qualified or pre-qualified for a loan, they'd get back a PDF that they'd have to have someone on their team manually extract data out of and put it into Salesforce to then continue to work through the process with their customers. So we implemented a product on Heroku we implemented an application on Heroku that basically would automatically ingest the email from these lending partners with the attached PDF. It would take that PDF and it uses Textract which is an AI OCR tool, to automatically get the text out of those PDFs and into a structured format. So being able to take things like the interest rate or whether or not that loan is pre-approved and automatically get that data into a consistent structured format. And then we would update Salesforce with that data. So instead of having a human need to keep their eyes out for these loan callbacks and then immediately jump on that, get the data into Salesforce, and then progress the processing of the loan, this is now fully automated where the loan callback comes in, AI is able to process that and ultimately write that data into Salesforce, where their team can now jump in with at a further point in the process. So I don't know if you want to advance to that next slide here, maybe. Let's see. Here we go. So here you can kind of see this flow, and all of this is being powered by Heroku, right? So this application we built, it's handling that email, it's coordinating with Textract from an AI analysis perspective. One thing I'll just mention on that AI analysis piece is, in this case, we were able to use just Textract, but in other cases, you might couple Textract with like a large language model, say like an OpenAI, to even do even more advanced analysis of this unstructured information. So there's really a lot you can do now on that kind of that middle step there of AI analyzing the PDF. And then we have some logic there to query Salesforce, check to see if it's the right, check to see which opportunity is the relevant one based on the data that came back from the AI, and then we go ahead and update it. All right, so I want to pivot into talking about sort of the process that we deploy at LaunchPad to build great products. And I think this process is pretty consistent and repeatable, and something that you could definitely look to run if you're interested in building some type of application. We always start with a workshop. We're really big into workshopping at LaunchPad. We find that with very well-run, facilitated workshops, you can create rapid alignment on the product. And that's very important to getting off on a fast and right point with a project. I see so many times projects kind of sputter at this beginning stage where it's very difficult to get alignment across different teams, different functions, different stakeholders. Our design thinking workshop is something we've honed over the last 10 years to build a lot of alignment very rapidly upfront. Usually this entails going on site with our clients, but this is obviously something we can do remote as well. And COVID sort of spurred us getting much better at running these remotely. So once you run this workshop and you sort of get alignment on what we would call a project charter and sort of product vision, that's when we start to move into design. And we do this very rapidly. We typically do this within the first week or two, where we have an initial prototype design of what the application experience could be based on that design thinking workshop. There's oftentimes some sort of iteration there on the design side to really nail that, make sure everyone's happy and it's really nailing all of the right outcomes. But once everyone's really comfortable with the product design, we're moving right into development. And then ultimately we're launching and we're maintaining and supporting it. And in many cases, continuing to build and iterate on that product. So if you're at the kind of early stage and you have an idea for an application or your business is thinking about building an app, this is the process that we recommend you start with. This is the process we run at LaunchPad. So the process really entails starting with that design thinking workshop to align on the vision and the key outcomes of the product. From there, what our team will do is we'll compile what we call a roadmap deck. And the roadmap includes the product vision, the business case. It will showcase some initial product design work. So we'll actually do some visual design mockups with you, so you can actually visually see how that app might shape out and how it might actually look and feel to a customer or a user. We'll also compile a technical plan, and so that's going to be a proposed architecture as well as data flows. And the final thing is a delivery plan, and that's includes both the timeline, the cost of development, implementation, as well as the cost of any technology that you need to license, for example, Heroku, to power that application. And so this roadmap document is really a full the goal is that you have everything in your hand that you need to make a good, sound decision as a business leader, a business owner, or an IT leader on should we do this project, and if we do it, what should we expect? And it should have everything really laid out so you can make a really good decision there. So in general, that process is something that we do for free for our clients. It's it's part of getting to know us and work together and build some rapport together. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or my colleague Kelly. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to talk to you about your project or your company, or just generally build a relationship. Don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate y'all tuning into this, and hopefully you found this valuable.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks so much, Ryan. All right, everybody, that concludes the content portion of our webinar today. We do have some questions in the chat that I'm going to start to work through. But if you have additional questions, feel free to type them into that Q&A section at the bottom there, and we will get to them. Okay, so our first question here is for you, Ben. So Ben, I didn't realize that Heroku was a Salesforce product. How do Heroku customers benefit from that relationship?
Well, I think one of the best ways is that because we're a part of the broader Salesforce family, there's a lot of encouragement for us to be the innovation engine, right? Where do new cool things happen? They happen on Heroku. They also benefit from having an extended account team, right? So beyond just having, you log into your sort of anonymous portal, you're doing what you have to do day to day. When you're using Heroku, you also have access to this wealth of information that, people like Ryan, people like me, people like the extended account team. I think there's a lot of those benefits that a lot of folks aren't considering.
Thanks, Ben. And actually, Ryan, we have a follow-up question that's for you that's quite similar to this. So I'm going to couple these together. So how does LaunchPad Lab leverage Salesforce integrations to enhance the capabilities and applications that are built on Heroku?
Yeah, for sure. It's such a great question. To me, I view Salesforce as being very unique in the fact that since it made a really great decision of bringing Heroku into its fold, I think it offers its customers a really powerful dual engine architecture, where one engine is Salesforce that can power your internal teams, your sales teams, your service teams, your marketing teams. They can operate there in Salesforce, where they can see data about their customers. They can have that 360-degree view of their customers there in Salesforce. But then the other sort of the other side of that glass is that customer-facing view of that same data, right? And that's where Heroku comes in, is building that UI UX for your customer, where they can have a portal or an app to be able to engage with you in a self-service way. And that data be bisynchronously connected to your CRM, to Salesforce, to allow for those teams in Salesforce to be able to communicate and quickly manage data related to their customers. So I think it's a really unique value prop, and something we've had a ton of success with our clients, like kind of implementing that dual engine architecture, both helping clients who've been on Heroku but don't have Salesforce implement Salesforce. And then on the other side, companies who maybe have Salesforce, but they're trying to, innovate and change their digital experience, or maybe build their first digital experience, be able to do that in a way that's very connected to Salesforce.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. And then we have a question here about how can we get the video guide or tutorial to deploy a Heroku app step by step? Ben, do you want to take that one? I'm happy to help with that as well.
Yeah, so a guide would be our Dev Center. And if you go to devcenter.heroku.com, there are a number of getting started pathways, right? You pick the framework you want to use, the runtime you want to use, and kind of go from there. I'll hand it back to you, Emily, to see if there's a link to a video.
Yeah, I don't have one here right now, but I would recommend the exact same thing that you said, Ben, of that yes, start with our Dev Center. That's the best place to start. There's tons and tons of resources there for all different kinds of applications that you're looking to build on Heroku. We also have a pretty robust blog that has some interesting content as well. There isn't necessarily a step-by-step guide there, but it can help you understand different use cases and ways that other customers are using Heroku as well. So I'd recommend checking both those things out. And you can go to heroku.com to find both of those as well. All right, let's see here. We've got a lot of questions coming through. Someone is asking about how to access the webinar recordings for this. So we will, if you're attending today, you'll get an email with the recording. We'll also post those on heroku.com as well. So you can find them there afterwards. And then let's see. Ryan, another question for you. So how does LaunchPad Lab balance the need for rapid development with maintaining high quality standards in app development?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, in a lot of ways, Heroku itself kind of helps you with that. So Heroku published this idea of the 12-factor manifesto. And it's basically it's this series of principles. There's 12 principles that guide application development to where you can sort of do both of those things, where if you follow those principles, it's going to be easy to scale and grow that application, and that application will have less likelihood of failure. But it's also allows for more rapid development because you're creating consistency. There's consistency in the way you're structuring your environment, your application itself. So I find that with our team sort of following that 12 factor, I mean, just by working with Heroku, just by using Heroku, you kind of inherently follow that. You end up in a situation where your app is fast to market. It's easy to get it live on the web, but then it's also very scalable. It's highly performant. It's very secure because you're getting the best of the best of DevOps in it. Naturally there's going to be some trade-offs, right? As you're thinking about things like, to what extent do you want to write tests for your code base? Writing tests takes time. At Launchpad, we're very big on, writing tests because ultimately it does speed things up, especially when you get into changing the app. So if you write a test today, that might take you an extra hour. Tomorrow when you go to change something in the code, and having a test that you can run to automatically detect if you created a regression issue is super valuable and speeds things up down the road, right? So there are some of those conversations with clients, but mostly we just sort of help them understand that putting a little bit of extra legwork in up front on things like testing is going to speed up development, both in the initial build, but especially long term.
And that is a perfect segue actually to our next question. So thanks for teeing me up, Ryan. Their next question is about speed to market. So you mentioned speed to market. Can you shed some light on timing and how Heroku helps speed things up overall? Brian, I'm going to ping that back to you. And then Ben, I'm guessing you've got some thoughts on that as well.
For sure. Yeah. So we've done a ton of projects over the years, and I found that most of them are take in between 2 to 5 months to build a full scale application and bring it to market. Now, usually what we're always trying to do with clients is find like, what's the 3-month version of what you're trying to do that we can bring to market and get some initial feedback on. I tend to find that if the initial go to market is 8 months or a year, you're waiting way too long to get something in front of people and start to get feedback. Even for those big projects, I mean, we have some projects that have been very transformative for companies that do take a year. We'll break it into, we'll find a milestone, a first release point at 3 months where we'll release a version of it where it can start adding value. In the case of Rock Solid, that was a few weeks, right? It was a very quick project. There wasn't any type of user interface. It was purely a back-end tool. So it can really range, and it depends on what you're trying to do. But I had I would say my empirical or sort of, hot read on time differences between using Heroku and not is it's probably about twice as fast from what I can tell. So teams are about twice as productive, twice as fast bringing products to market when they're using Heroku versus when they're like dealing with DevOps and stuff. And in some cases, I would say it's it's even worse than that. Like I've seen some, and we certainly have clients who manage their own data centers and things like that. And oftentimes the long pole in the tent isn't the app dev, it ends up being the DevOps side of things. So I definitely would say, 2x faster to market typically than doing your own DevOps. And then it can be even more.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Ben, did you have anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Ryan says. In my experience dealing with customers, the hardest part is getting started, right? It's that whole idea of the blank page. Where do we start? And then what ends up happening is there's this analysis paralysis. Oh no, we have to do all of these different boxes. We have to manage all of these different things. Well, with Heroku, you just write the code and git push Heroku main, and you're kind of up, and you can test, you can take it down, you can release new features. It really does speed up that time to market because you don't have to worry about sort of all of those things, right? You can have this idea and get it on web as quickly as you need to.
Thanks, Ben. And then we have a question that Ryan, this one would be for you too as well. It's about a specific customer example that you shared. So can you elaborate more on the PDF querying in some detail that you were explaining with, I believe it was ATBS.
Yeah,
It might have been the other example.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
was the rock solid example. And essentially with this wave of AI, I mean, really what we're seeing is we're moving beyond document parsing into what I would call document understanding. So it's this idea of AI being instead of having like scripts that need to look for pieces of text like a string to automatically find, for example, like find the account number. So look for a string called account number and then pull out the whatever's to the right of that. That's kind of how we used to do PDF parsing, right? It'd be these scripts, very fragile, very brittle. If that PDF format changed, if instead of calling it account number, they call it customer number, now that breaks, that parsing tool breaks, right? What we're seeing now is with AI and tools like Textract and coupling something like Textract with an OpenAI, an LLM like OpenAI, you're moving into this territory of document understanding where the AI is actually able to understand the document, understand that this thing called customer number is actually the same as account number, and that it should extract and it should give you that. And so you can actually have essentially the situation where you have an unstructured document as an input and a structured document as an output, a structured set of JSON as an output, with AI kind of being that glue to move from unstructured into structured. And this is really exciting because, I think it's just one of those like tectonic shifts in capabilities where so many business processes are not automated because it's been impossible to turn unstructured data into structured data automatically in the past. And now it is possible, right? So it opens up all of these use cases, and pretty much every client I talk to, there are opportunities to lean into this technology to streamline business workflows and take human steps out of the way and allow people to focus on the things that they frankly want to be focused on, which is higher value tasks.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. And let's stay on AI for a second because we've got a question here. And Ben, I'm going to pass this to you. Of what sort of AI capabilities does Heroku specifically have?
Sure. So I guess it depends on what types of workloads you want to run. But if we talk about sort of the data piece that Ryan was just leaning into, we do have the ability for our customers to use the PG vector extension in their databases, right? So if you want to store those vector embeddings, there's a way that you can store them now in association with your application, right? And you can now use it as that destination for your retrieval augmented generation. We've just rolled out recently larger dynos, right? So if we can send some links if people are interested in that. Basically what it does, it allows you to run sort of typical predictive machine learning models on Heroku. So if you need to run something like an LSTM type model, or if you need to run sort of typical recommendation type engines, you can run those definitely on dynos we have now. As far as, and I'm sort of jumping ahead, Emily, because I see there's another question in here for roadmap. So, to that point for the roadmap, and I have to lean in on the safe harbor language that Emily mentions in slide 2 of this presentation. So Don't make decisions based on something that's not currently GA. But some of those things that are coming are things like GPU dynos, right? The ability to have a GPU dyno that you can now run, some aspect of the AI modeling in there, whether it's an inference endpoint or whether you're doing actually um, uh, some of the AI work there as well. That's coming. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but we're actually working on sort of, replatforming some of Heroku into using Kubernetes. And we've recently launched Postgres on Aurora. So a few things we have some of our essential databases that are running there. We're actually working on having Heroku Postgres on Aurora. But again, safe harbor, these things take time to roll out and they are on the roadmap. I do have a link to the roadmap that we can share, Emily, with everybody if they like. We can drop that into the Q&A or into the chat. But there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening on the roadmap.
Awesome.
And
Thanks, Ben.
if I could
Yeah.
jump in one thing there too is, what I think has really happened over the last couple of years is that these AI projects have turned from being primarily about the AI to being primarily about app building. So like AI now is kind of like it's really now more of an API that you can integrate into your app, as opposed to, maybe 3 years ago, you had to have an ML team, standing up your own AI model. Now it's really easy to integrate AI right into your application, just like any other API. And so it's really opening up, it's kind of flipping the triangle example, flips the triangle upside down, where more of the time is spent on the app side of things and less on the AI side of things, which Heroku is obviously great for building apps. So I think, for me, I think that Heroku is a great product and tool for solving problems with AI, because it allows you to quickly build. And a lot of what goes into these AI applications is tying tying the data together, getting the vector data flowing into the AI model, and making sure there's a user, is tied into the user experience. So there's a lot of data, like sort of data glue that happens there that you can do within Heroku.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. And thanks for answering some of the other questions there, Ben. Appreciate that about the product roadmap. I did just pop a link into our blog. I'm going to pop one into about the product roadmap to address that question here in a second. But while I do that, Ryan, how do you see the roles of platforms like Heroku evolving over the next few years, particularly with increasing focus on AI and machine learning? We kind of talked about that a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can dive in a little bit deeper there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's all about bringing that Heroku DX, to AI, right? That's where I would think it would go, is like, at the end of the day, Heroku figured out how to make application development really easy, and deployments really easy. And that was a really hard thing back in the day. Like, it was really hard to get an application live on the internet. And they came out with this amazing DX that just blew, developers out of the water. I mean, Heroku was something that kind of changed the industry in a lot of ways. I'd see that as an opportunity now with Heroku and with platform as a service, is to take those same principles of developer experience and bring that to the process of AI, and deploying AI models, and making that super easy, and taking care of some things like, Ben mentioned RAG earlier. It's like, it's kind of painful setting up RAG. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of data movement, data flows. There's tools like LangChain that make it easier, but I think there's a big opportunity for platform as a service to really make that easier, to allow you to have like your AI inference runtime, sitting maybe in the same isolated network as your application runtime. Like, wouldn't that be nice? So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, there. And I'm excited about the future. I think, I think AI is there with any new technology, there's obviously hype, but I feel like there's more reality to this than some other hype cycles. And we're seeing real outcomes for our clients, and real use cases, and getting apps actually deployed to production using this stuff. So I'm super excited. Obviously, assuming we're able to take care of some of the kind of the scary risks that come along with AI on the existential front. But yeah, the use cases right now are pretty awesome.
Thanks, Ryan. And one more question for you, Ben. This question is around the pricing model and the different plans available on Heroku. So can you talk about the differences between a direct Heroku plan and an enterprise Heroku plan?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So the direct plan allows customers to sign up online. So Heroku.com/sign up. You enter in a credit card and you're off and running, right? You can start really small, have that cool idea, take your idea, turn it into a URL, publish it, and then you can scale it, right? So you start off with this cool idea for your small company, you grow it, grow it, and then pretty soon you maybe want to do something a little more enterprise-like, right? And you want to move to a contract, right? So flatten your costs, build out a forecast model. Maybe you want to leverage some additional services, or you want to leverage additional support because you want to grow, but maybe don't want to add, developers or however that works out. The enterprise contract allows customers to do that, right? It allows them to now not only get an enterprise contract with features, but it gives them an extended account team. We talked about that a little bit before, right? It gets people like me involved. It gets people like the Heroku AE, people who have insights, long periods of tenure at the platform. So there's some sort of explicit value in going from credit card to a contract, and there's some more sort of implicit value of the human resources that go along with it as well. Did that answer that question? Whoever asked it, if I didn't answer your question, find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to clarify if you want, but I think that's sort of what the spirit of the question was.
You're going to get blown up on LinkedIn now, Ben. No, I think you did a great job of answering that question. Awesome. Well, we only have 1 minute left, and I want to make sure everybody has the resources they need after this webinar. So again, the webinar resources will be shared. If you are attending today, you're going to get a thank you email for attending, and you'll get a link to the recording there that has all the slides within it. And then also you can visit our YouTube channel as well to view this webinar and previous webinars that are hosted by Heroku. But I wanted to say thank you to both Ben and Ryan for joining us today. And we really appreciate all of your insight and your expertise around Heroku. And if you do have any follow-up questions for Ben, you could reach out to him on LinkedIn, as he mentioned. And then Ryan's email is within the recording deck as well if you're interested in working with LaunchPad Lab. But thanks, everybody, and we hope you have a fabulous rest of your day.
Thanks
Thank you all.